most lawyers are actually pretty introverted. They think, well, I'll just do the online marketing because that, doesn't require me to get out and speak in public and get around big crowds and all of that. I will say what I find is that's a huge fallacy, because the same people who are introverted who feel that way tend to then not do as much marketing as they could be doing as well for the same reasons, because then they're afraid, well, what will people think if I put this out there, right? And so then they never do hardly anything. To those of you who are listening who are more introverted and like, networking or, writing online or whatever it is, there is a way to do it as an introvert that can still feel really good. A lot of my clients come to me because they're more introverted and they know they need to do these things, but they don't feel like they can because of their introversion. And I'm like, no, you really can. And in fact, introverts tend to be better once they get the hang of it and start doing it regularly, because all you're doing when you're going out and networking is creating relationships with real people.
Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World of Marketing, where I, Tom Foster, talk with legal leaders about, yes, you guessed it, marketing mindset and the growth of law firm businesses. This episode is brought to you by Foster Web Marketing. Since the internet was born, Foster has been the premier provider of customized websites, SEO, video, and strategic solutions for elite law firms. Our unparalleled web technology and systems set the gold standard in the industry, catering exclusively to a discerning clientele who demand the best. Partner with Foster Web Marketing for services like a fractional CMO, perfect for firms looking to elevate their strategy without the full-time commitment or cost of a traditional CMO. Visit Foster Web Marketing to discover how we can help you achieve your most ambitious goals and solidify your position at the forefront of your field. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Heather Mulder. Heather is a former big law partner turned lawyer coach. She traded in her $2.5 million law practice to help lawyers build their ideal legal career around the lifestyle that they actually want. And Heather and I are just getting to know each other. And so we will do that with everybody here. So Heather, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And you do a podcast yourself, don't you?
Yes, I host the Life and Law podcast, which really is aimed at lawyers who are trying to do what you said earlier that I coach around, which is building a law practice they actually enjoy, practicing and doing it in a way where they can have the lifestyle they want. Because we all know most lawyers, well, I wouldn't say most, a large percentage of lawyers out there are not the happiest. They end up way too stressed, way too anxious. And I, after dealing with that myself early in my legal career, kind of getting over it, and then going through some issues of my own that kind of changed the trajectory of my career, I decided I wanted to figure out ways to help lawyers get away from that, because there is a better way and you can practice without feeling that way. So.
Yeah, it's a tough, well, you're a lawyer, it is a tough business to be in, no matter what you practice, because, and you can debate this with me, but you go to law school and you learn how to practice law.
Yep.
You learn the law.
Yep.
And then you graduate and you're out there and you either go to work for a big law firm or you go on your own. Either way, you got to do something called marketing and business development, which they don't teach you in law school.
Well, they don't teach you a lot in law school. They teach you how to think, quote unquote, like a lawyer. They like to say that, right? To think like a lawyer. I don't know that you need 3 years for that, but okay.
What does that really mean? What does that mean?
I mean, there's an analysis. There's a way to think forward. There's risk analysis, thinking forward, figuring out kind of all the avenues and the possibilities and guarding against it, which is great for your clients, not so great for you when applied to you in your life, which is what lawyers do. That's part of the stress too, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of it. There's the way we think, and lawyers, I think most people going into law school are perfectionists and people pleasers and care a tremendous amount about what other people think of them. Those are traits that are pretty common in lawyers. And I don't know if I don't personally believe it's developed in law school. I think it's exacerbated by what you learn in law school.
Right.
And then you come out and you know nothing about networking or marketing or selling or any of the business development items out there, and you don't really even know business. Like most lawyers, they do pre-law, they do government, they do like a lot of lawyers don't have backgrounds with any basic business concepts. And so the thing that I've noticed about a lot of attorneys is they think because of their training and because of how proud of their training they are, which they should be, but they have to be super trained at everything to be able to do it, which is the big fallacy, right? They think, well, I can't market, I can't sell, I can't do the business side. Yeah, you can. You can figure it out. Like you may not know it, but there's plenty of people out there who can help you. There's trainings out there. You can learn, you're smart, and so you combine all of that. And it's no wonder people are stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, right?
Well, and I think that, and you touched on it, I think that part of it is that lawyers want to control everything, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult for lawyers to delegate out, especially in areas that they don't understand, right? They can delegate out like their work to a paralegal, right? No problem. I don't
know if it's no problem, but
okay, well, you know what I'm saying. It's easier for them to do that than say delegate out marketing,
right?
Or because they don't understand it as well, so they don't have as much control. So they're very risk averse. And
incredibly risk averse.
Right. So it's, but that is the key to success, is delegating. Otherwise you're going to be driving yourself nuts. I think that you need to have awareness, and you have to have an understanding of what's going on with your business, because that's what you're running. Right. You're running a business. It's just a law firm, but it's a business,
Yeah, and I think that's a couple of things there. So number one, you don't just have a practice, which is what they tend to think of it, right? And when we think of the practice, we think of the lawyering side. But you can be an incredible technical lawyer, provide amazing results for your clients, and yet really fail at growing your own business, because it's not about that. I mean, yes, that's needed to sustain it long term and to gain a larger reputation, and you can get referrals that way and all of that, but that's not the only thing, right? And this is why a lot of lawyers they get a little more senior, they realize they don't really have the same book that somebody else has. And they look at that person and go, well, how on earth have they done it? They're not even as good of a lawyer as me. And they're probably right.
I was about to say that.
Right? Well, that's because those people have a basic understanding and knowledge around these other things, number one. And I do think there's a difference between mastering something and having a basic understanding. And getting the basic understanding is not that hard. Like, you're smart, you can figure, and there are people out there, again, that can help. So whether it be hiring somebody like you and your firm, I'm sure you guys have meetings with your clients. You help make them more aware. You help, teach them too, so that they understand what they need to know in order to ask the right questions and in order to be able to guide you on what your best role is. Same thing for like somebody like me who does like leadership and business development coaching for individual lawyers. I help teach them. Like, my goal is not to work with them forever. It's to help them get the basic leadership skills they need, the basic, how to delegate and do it in a way where they feel like they have control, but they can let go of it to some extent. FYI, it's systems. You got to have a lot of systems in place when you delegate. Then you have a little bit more control, and you learn how to let go of the things that you can let go of and just control the things that you can. And then also the business development side, right? Like, you can get a basic understanding of those things, and the finance side and understanding the numbers. You don't need to be the accountant for your firm, but you need to have a basic grasp. So there's that. And then you can hire out people. Like, there's a lot of people out there who can help you, but most lawyers, where they really mess up is this idea that I have to do it all. I need to understand this. I need to master it before I can give it to somebody else. And guess what? If you're a good lawyer, you're never going to have the time. And frankly, nobody has the time to master everything. So
sure. Right. I mean, like, I'm not doing, I got 50 people working here, right, to do all the stuff that's got to happen around here for everybody. And but I started out by myself. I had a hard time delegating too, right? Because I didn't think anybody could do it. It took me a long time, but once I did, then I was like, this is the way to go. This is
Yeah.
the way to go. And you're right. Like I was completely stressed out, work. I didn't think anybody could do it, but you just have to get the right people. And I was very fortunate to get the right people. And so when you said that's what you mean by leadership training, is that you teach them how to run their business, run their practice.
And lead others. So
Lead
lawyers
others.
are typically not the best managers and leaders,
Right.
because they've never had any training. And I think the primary reason is the control aspect, because they have such trouble letting go. And you can't be a good leader or manager if you don't let go and you don't allow others to step in and do. And you don't allow others to make some mistakes here and there, because that's how they are going to learn. Right. And so, yeah, a lot of my clients, because even when they hire me mostly for the business development side, well, if it starts to grow, then they need more help, which then always leads to things like delegation and how to lead a team. And so, and lawyers are the other thing about attorneys that I don't know if you know or not, but we don't share a lot with others. We don't share our struggles. We're super afraid that we're the only ones, when frankly, every single person out there feels that way, right? All lawyers, all people feel these things. We fear, we worry, we obsess over stuff. That what's going on in our brain, it's going on in everybody else's brain too. But because we never share what we're struggling with, we never share our fears, we never share, what we worry about, because we're afraid what other people are going to think, then we put ourselves into this horrible hole of, well, I have to do everything on my own and I can't ever get help and I can't ever share. And we feel more and more and more and more isolated, which just causes all kinds of other problems. And that's another reason why it ends up very hard for a lot of lawyers to delegate and to let go. It's all kind of interconnected.
It's very interesting to me, because just like you said, lawyers, they don't really share what they're going through, and they always put on this front like everything is wonderful.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing too. This same thing with the marketing. They're like, oh yeah, this is working so well. They don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
they're telling their buddies that to justify their expense. How much did you pay for that? Oh man, I paid a lot for it, man. But it's working great, when they don't even know.
Which causes more problems, right? And more stress. So you get a lot of mirroring of other people. Oh, well, they're doing it. It must be working. Right. Therefore, I'll do it. And you don't even know. That's
the big problem with pay-per-click. That's the big problem that we have with pay-per-click and lawyers, because they see these vanity keywords and they see their buddies or their competitors coming up for it. And they're like, I want to do that too. And it's like,
but how is that actually leading to, what does that lead to? What are you paying versus what are you getting from it?
Right. And you don't even know if that's working for them. Like that's the thing, is like we can go in there and say, this is not working for them. So don't go spend money on this. Yeah. Google has made a fortune off of lawyers.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's what puts FindLaw and Scorpion, and that's how they fund their company, is through pay-per-click. I mean, getting the kickback from Google from lawyers, because lawyers are just like, yeah, $1 million a month, man. To get those few $1 million cases. What kind of law did you practice, Heather?
I was a corporate finance lawyer.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So a big law, we do kind of the quote unquote boring work, but for me, it was interesting. And, client development for me was primarily about, and let's step back. I practiced a lot, quite a while ago. I quit, I guess, 7 years ago. I practiced for over 18 years. So when I started, really, lawyer business development was very different than it is now, right? Mm-hmm. People did not advertise a lot back then. The only advertisers you ever saw when I was a baby lawyer were the guys that were advertising, or did you get a ticket and need to get out? Like, you just didn't see a lot. And then you started seeing more PI and all of that. But now you see a lot more advertising in general for a lot of different kinds of lawyers and law firms. So back then it was primarily referral based. It was primarily networking, right? And I do think networking is still very important.
I agree.
One of the 3 cogs, right? But there's several. To me, there's networking, there's marketing, and there's selling. And you got to be doing all 3, right?
Right.
And marketing is not selling usually. Some of your marketing can sell, but it's not really the same thing. If you're going in with the thought you're selling, it's a different mindset, right? You approach it differently than if you're just going into market.
Right.
And networking is really, in my personal opinion, a necessary function for most lawyers. Even those lawyers, so I have lawyers all over. I have big law lawyers, I have solo practice lawyers, I have all kinds of practices, right? And it very much depends on your practice. But some networking is directly to your perfect clients, right? You go
Sure.
places where they are, you speak, you network, you whatever. Some of it, you're never touching people who would be your clients, but you're touching people who would know or have
Yep.
access to your clients and can refer them to you. Both of those can work incredibly well, and you've got to network for that. So
Yeah, I just was having a call with one of my clients about this exact same thing because that's what he's doing. He's networking, and he's an interesting guy. He's an estate planning lawyer in Pennsylvania and in kind of a rural area, but very affluent area. And no, I'm sorry, in Georgia. I got him confused. Okay. Anyway, but he is he went to law school 30 years ago. Never took the bar.
Oh, wow.
Did other things, and then now his son just took the bar, and he was like, "Hey, I think I'll take the bar, and let's go into business together." So they went and started this law firm. Yeah, right. Isn't that cool? So he's just getting into it, but he is he's networking, and that's where he's getting his best cases right now, as he is getting his marketing, his website going.
Right.
But he's out there doing it. And he was just talking about how he had met a woman who was a divorce lawyer, knows everybody in the town. And those are the people that you want to get to know.
Yep.
Know everybody, right? And so go get to know those people, take them out for dinner, lunch. That's what we tell, our, like, for instance, very niche players, lawyers, like brain injury, traumatic brain injury lawyer. That's a very difficult SEO thing to get, right? Because people are like, I have a brain injury, and people won't do that, right? People find out because they were in a car accident, they have a brain injury, but it's through the car accident usually. And that means that it's usually they have another lawyer already doing the car accident or the simple PI that doesn't know how to do a TBI case or a brain injury case, right?
But if they know somebody who does, they can refer
exactly.
you.
And that's why you want to, as a very niche lawyer, you want to market to other lawyers that are feeders.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to me, the number of lawyers, and I don't know if you see this, but the number of lawyers I see who don't want to network because they're introverts.
Right.
A lot of lawyers, people would be surprised who don't know a lot of lawyers, but most lawyers are actually pretty introverted. And, they think, well, I'll just do the online marketing because that, doesn't require me to get out and speak in public and get around big crowds and all of that. I will say what I find is that's a huge fallacy, because the same people who are introverted who feel that way tend to then not do as much marketing as they could be doing as well for the same reasons, because then they're afraid, well, what will people think if I put this out there, right? And so then they never do hardly anything. And to those of you who are listening who are more introverted and like, oh, networking or, writing online or whatever it is, there is a way to do it as an introvert that can still feel really good. Like there are ways, there are tricks and tips and things that you can do. And a lot of my clients come to me because they're more introverted and they know they need to do these things, but they don't feel like they can because of their introversion. And I'm like, no, you really can. And in fact, introverts tend to be better once they get the hang of it and start doing it regularly, because all you're doing when you're going out and networking is creating relationships with real people. And introverts are better listeners. And introverts then will ask better questions. And introverts are better at following up with people. They're much better at creating those intimate relationships than extroverts are. So you can be incredibly successful at it. You just need to get out there and do it and find how to shrink a room, get out there, make yourself feel comfortable. There are ways. But that's just something I wanted to note, because I know that there's a lot of people that will steer away from the networking and try to do the other stuff. And I do think that if you need to grow your business quickly, the quickest, easiest way is through networking. Marketing is a necessary piece, but it's more long-term, right?
Right.
And then the second point that I made earlier, that just if you're not willing to do the networking, the likelihood that you're going to do all the marketing that you really need to be doing is pretty slim as well. So you got to get comfortable.
And it's not going to pay off for you. Like,
No.
It's not, because you have to get your brand out there. That's what networking is getting your
Right.
brand out there. And that's what you are, right? Everybody, you're a brand. You know, your name is your brand.
You are your brand.
Right. Even if you work at a big firm, that big firm, right? Even more so. I mean, they are.
It's not just the firm, right? It's not just the firm. So there's a firm brand and there's the you brand. And
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. I will say more and more, because I was in big law, and more attorneys are harshly finding out that it's really not just about your firm, and it's often very, very little has to do with your firm. Like, the firm is the first place they go, the bigger firms, but they're looking at a number of bigger firms as a CYA for whatever reason, based on the issue at hand, right? So when they're looking at 4 different firms, the firm doesn't matter anymore. What they care about is the individuals.
Right. Who's going to be who am I going to be working with individually? Right. 100%. And and just like we were saying, big firms, you might even have more pressure by the partners of the big firm to get out there and market and get out there and network than, you know, you would on your own, for sure. You know, like, even though I totally agree with you, networking, and I'm an introvert, believe it or not, even though it doesn't.
So am I.
Yeah, right. But we fake it. We fake through it. And introverts generally are attracted to each other because extroverts you're kind of like, oh my God, what's going on with that person? It's a little too much. And so, like what you were saying, if you can get yourself out there, introverts tend to be trusted quicker.
Yeah.
Because of what you were saying, because they listen, and because and the other thing too is, you're familiar with mastermind groups, right? Do you have a mastermind?
Yeah. I have a mastermind group. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. And that's a form of networking that's easy to do. That is not a hostile, like walking into a conference of people you don't have no idea about. So I recommend mastermind groups to people all the time, because that's a step in the right direction. Plus, you can get in that group and everybody's honest, right?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of the things, and the reason I run the mastermind group, is one of the things I hear the most from attorneys is how isolated they feel and how much of an imposter they feel like they are.
Right.
And they go hand in hand. They feel like an imposter because of how isolated they are. And they are isolated and feel that way because they never share. They never talk, like really truly talk about what they're struggling with, what they fear, what they worry about, all of that stuff, because everybody else is putting out this false outward image that we talked about earlier, which isn't real, right? Everybody struggles at some point, and everybody has fears and worries, and everybody doubts themselves. And if you never say it, hardly even admit it to yourself, much less to somebody else who is a peer. And it's really important, I think, to share with peers, not just people who are above you. Because when you're talking to mentors who are 10, 15 years ahead of you, you're more, oh yeah, you did, but you don't anymore. Like, you can't connect and relate in the same way. So when you're in a peer mastermind, where it's something that has been put together by somebody with people who are in a similar journey as you, who are struggling with the same things, and you all come together and you share that, it's like this light bulb goes off, like, oh my God, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, exactly.
Sharing your struggles.
You see that over and over again.
Is the cure to imposter syndrome. That really is. I see it over and over and over again. And not only that, but I mean, masterminds are amazing for a lot of reasons. That is probably one of the biggest benefits that lawyers need, that they don't realize they need, through a mastermind, but also just brainstorming and getting different opinions from different people. And it's amazing how much more creative you end up being, how more confidence building that is. And I kind of like to think of it as a fast forward button. You're much more likely to keeps you accountable. You're more likely to go do the things you say you're going to do, which then leads to actual results.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like your accountability, like you're accountant to all these other people that you're in the mastermind with, that made you feel that you weren't the only one, right? Everybody goes in there thinking that their problems are unique to them.
Right.
Everybody.
Yep.
but it's so far from the truth. Everybody's got the same thing going on for the most part. And there's people way ahead of you in the journey, and there's people behind you in the journey.
Yep.
And that's what's so fun about the mastermind is that you get all of that. Everybody gets something from it.
Oh yeah. And it's interesting to me how you can gain even from people who there are people attorneys are really bad about this. Like, oh, well, I am more senior. I won't get anything out of this.
Right. I've heard that too.
Not true.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact, I had a mastermind that just ended recently and my masterminds are very small, intimate groups because that's what my people want. So they're not the bigger masterminds that a lot of people in the online space tend to do. They're more like 4 or 5 people total.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
nice.
Some of that has to do with time constraints, right? Lawyers are busy. They're not willing to do this for long. And they all want to come. And if they're going to come and put their time in, they want to come and have an issue that is solved right then and there. So
do you do it virtually? Or do you do it?
We do on Zoom.
Okay.
Because they're all over the place in the country
Sure.
usually. And the last group, it was interesting because I had a woman who was more senior than the others. And she was like, I don't know if I'm going to gain much from this. And I had a very strong inclination that she would for a plethora of reasons that she was not realizing. And she ended up coming in and after the fact was like, wow, this is exactly what I needed when I needed it. It benefited her so much in ways she didn't imagine, right? So there's so much you can learn from just about anybody out there. Everybody has their own strengths. Everybody has their own values. They bring different things to the table. They have different viewpoints. You gain a lot by getting that. And frankly, sometimes getting people from a earlier generation, people who are earlier in that kind of progression can really help energize you and change your viewpoint in a way that's incredibly beneficial for you and your practice, how you lead, everything. So I would say don't knock that.
Right. I agree with you. So what would you say is, what are you most proud of? Like, what are you most proud of that you've done in the last, with your coaching group?
I am most proud that my clients tend to not work with me for lengthy periods of time because my whole goal was to come in and not, one of the things that I've never loved about some of the coaches out there, and frankly more in the therapy space, is this thought that, oh, I need to go see them forever or for years and years and years
Sure.
and years and years. I don't think that should be the case, right? I think the point of most therapy, depends on what it's for, and definitively for coaching, is to help people learn what they need to learn, change their habits, reset their thinking in a way where they can then move on and do it themselves. And it doesn't mean they never come back, but people will come back to me, but really more for, hey, I have a new idea I'd like to brainstorm, or hey, it's very different things. And it's later on down the road and for small periods, right? Just to help them with that. So, most of my clients work with me for 1 to 2 years and then they're done. And we keep in touch. We still talk. We still, I love it. It's the hardest thing because you get a really deep relationship with people to let them go. But it's the best thing too, because okay, I helped them and I helped them in a way where they can go do for themselves. And oftentimes then it's time for them to move on to something else, like hiring somebody like you, right. They're at a new level where they don't need somebody like me. They need an agency to come in and actually start doing more for them, that kind of a thing.
And we kind of do a very similar thing with our clients because we like to work with clients that have marketing people there or somebody that's doing the marketing there. And we want to train them because we have do-it-yourself system. And then we do it all for you or whatever, different levels. And Our goal, just like what you were saying, our goal is to get them off of doing the traditional services and doing it themselves, saving them, as long as they're doing it the right way, right? Saving them money and time. And they have more control. And that's the whole thing, is giving them more control. We have a system where they have complete control over their website and their marketing. And we know that they like that, and we give that to them and teach them how to do it, or teach whoever they want how to do it. So I'm with you on that. I think that's right. There's other companies that string them along on pay-per-click forever and ever and ever. That's never been my thing. Pay-per-click's a necessary evil, but you use it sporadically. You don't use it constantly, and you have to have somebody monitoring it. Otherwise, you're going to spend a fortune. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But so, Heather, how does somebody work with you? How does somebody get in touch with you and work with you? How do you?
So you could find me on LinkedIn. I'm Heather Moulder, Moulder, or my website, which is coursecorrectioncoaching.com. And I also host the Life and Law podcast. And through all of those avenues, you can find me.
That's fantastic. Well, everybody, I encourage you to reach out to Heather Moulder. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Heather, and meeting you. We'll have you on the podcast again if you'll come back, please, at some point. And we do webinars and we do virtual shows, and we're always looking for speakers to come do that. So we'd love to have you come do that. I think that you did a great job today, and I thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Yes. Okay, everybody, hang tight, Heather. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. It's Heather and Tom on the World of Marketing, and you all have yourselves a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening in.